Thank you again for subscribing to the Clive Barker podcast. In episode 267, Jose and Ryan are joined by Joe Manco and Catalina Carita of Little Spark Films to talk about working with Joe Bob Briggs on the Hellbound episode of The Last Drive-In, their film adaptation of Paul Kane's The Torturer, and we talk Clive Barker, Candyman, and generally geek out. This episode is sponsored by Dark Regions Press, a one-stop publisher and bookseller of Clive Barker and many other great authors. If you head over to www.darkregions.com/Clive Barker, all one word, you'll find everything of his they have for sale, like the Midnight Meat Train Special Definitive Edition starting at only $9. They also have the Body Book and pre-orders for the intriguing Clive Barker Mystery Box. All right, well, welcome. This is episode 267 of the Clive Barker podcast, and I'm Ryan.
I'm Joe.
And we're joined today by Joe Manco and Catalina Carita from Little Spark Films. Welcome.
Hello.
Hello.
Good to talk to you guys. It seems like we've been talking about you a lot in all these news episodes because you keep on doing stuff. So
sorry.
We'll stop doing stuff.
Yeah. So it'd be good to get. We thought it'd be good to get you on the podcast to talk about some of these things.
Thank you.
Yeah. So on the 19th of June, we caught Joe Bob Briggs covered Hellbound, Hellraiser 2 with two very special guests, Ashley Lawrence and Doug Bradley. So that was awesome to see that pop back up in the last drive-in, because I know that Joe Bob Briggs had done, he had covered Hellraiser before, I think in Monster Vision or something, and it was just great to see them come back. And you guys were part of that production, weren't you?
Yeah, actually, I did the whole season with the last drive-in. My one of my good friends. He used to work at Trauma headquarters, John Brennan, and he was in town, and he hit me up last minute after we got off a shoot, off a music video, and he said he just needed a helping hand for on set. I said, sure, I'm not doing anything, and so we knocked that out. I met a lot of great people. Chris Jericho was on the show, Tom Savini.
You worked pretty close with Yuki.
I worked pretty close with Yuki, helping him build the set, putting, props together, all the chain gags. And, when I got word that it was Hellraiser, my eyes got kind of squinty, like, what's going on here, guys?
That's awesome.
And, I couldn't contain myself, and explain. I started telling him. I think John Brennan knew of my mild obsession, and we pulled in the Little Spark Films team, and we did the Hellraiser gags with that was on the season finale.
That was awesome.
That is so cool.
So I started watching some of that because I got Shudder right now. So there's Hogzilla was one of the episodes. I think. Was fun. That night, I think they streamed Hellbound, and was Hell Comes to Frogtown? Was that?
On the season finale, yes. Hellbound was first, and then Hell Comes to Frogtown was the second feature.
Yeah, I still got to watch that one. And then there's Cannibal Holocaust that I haven't seen yet.
Oh,
but
you've never seen Cannibal Holocaust?
I've seen bits and pieces of it over the years. I don't think I've ever seen the whole movie. So this is going to be interesting to watch.
Man,
I don't like watching it because of all the animals getting killed.
Well, that movie is very important to film history. And first off, you're going to love the soundtrack. The soundtrack is phenomenal. It's beautiful. The most beautiful music plays during the most grotesque scenes.
Yeah, so that's a warning. If you haven't seen it and you are going to watch it, once the music starts getting really beautiful and orchestral, it's going to get,
Yeah. But
it's going to get rough.
A lot of things that it was stuff that people just didn't take into consideration back then when they were filming, and it is I think the primary film to have it's why PETA exists now.
Really?
And I don't I would never go, and even if PETA didn't exist, I don't think I would personally go and kill a 100-year-old tortoise.
Yeah,
sure.
I'm just not that kind of person. I can watch it on set, watch it on a movie, but I can't watch.
Yeah,
I don't want to.
They didn't just kill it, right? They carved the shell right off of its back, right? On
dude,
camera.
a lot of animals got tortured. Because in the film they're talking about survival and they need to eat and everything.
But really, it's a commentary about how the filmmakers themselves are the monsters, not the cannibals, and not the. It's the filmmakers themselves who are going in to prey on this tribe that was previously an uncontacted tribe.
Yeah,
right.
So it's actually it's a really, really important film. Sorry, we could ramble about it at length.
Is this the one that has that scene where there's an apparently impaled woman that people were like, oh, this looks so realistic, and then they actually try to the authorities in Italy try to contact the director to find out how he did that, and it actually was just a woman sitting on a bike seat, and then there was the top of a stick was just held onto her mouth, and is that the one that we're talking about, Cannibal Holocaust?
Yes, the filmmakers got in trouble.
Yeah, it disappeared for a while.
Because in a way, it was almost like one of the pioneers of like found footage style. Mm-hmm. Because they're trying to reconstruct the film team, like what happened to them.
But what's great is that since you've never seen it, and you're going to watch the Joe Bob Briggs episode, he goes into detail and expresses it in Joe Bob fashion about how things went down. So have fun.
Yeah, I'll definitely try to pair that Cannibal Holocaust with Eli Roth's The Green Inferno. I think it's kind of like a take on the Cannibal Holocaust thing too. Have you guys ever seen The Green Inferno?
Yeah. We actually rewatched it the other day because we hadn't seen it since it came out.
I kind of feel like Green Inferno is kind of like a loose sequel to Cannibal Holocaust, because in Cannibal Holocaust they refer to the jungle as the Green Inferno.
Well, it's literally inspired by.
Yeah,
right. Yeah, Eli Roth was very inspired. But hey, going back to Hellbound, so. One of the things I thought was really cool in the set was the way that the chains kind of look like they're actually attached to Joe Bob's chair and Doug Bradley's chair and stuff like that. And there's a really like awesome torture pillar in there. You guys did you work on that, Joe?
Yeah, we put it all together. We did all of it. The only thing we weren't doing is the switcher board, obviously. But I was allowed to bring on a few people from my crew to help me do that, and the people that helped on it were the guys that helped with the Hellbound Laments and the Torturer.
Yeah, that's awesome. And Ashley is 54, and she still looks great.
Yeah,
she does not look a day over like 35. She is not aged.
Yeah,
it's just the perks of being working on a Clive Barker film, because I remember that when we met. Oh my God.
Simon?
Yeah, when we met Simon, we're all like, man, Simon, you don't look like you.
You look like you did in Nightbreed.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So I had a lot of fun with Hellbound Hellraiser 2. So if anybody out there wants to check it out in the last drive-in, it's episode 17, week 9. And it's in the last season of The Last Drive-In. So go check it out. It's really good. And then there's also that awesome panel that they did on YouTube with Christopher Young and all the characters that play the Cenobites and Peter Atkins.
Right.
The Hellbound now has so much stuff content that you can watch along with a movie that's so amazing. It's coming out now, and it's crazy how this stuff keeps popping up, and for a movie that's over 30 years old, right? I mean, it's so good to see all this stuff. Hellraiser is never going to die, just like the drive-in.
Yeah. Speaking of Christopher Young, we just showed our little one the Sam Raimi Spider-Man trilogy, and man, in the second Spider-Man movie, you can really hear the Hellraiser when Dr. Octopus comes out.
Yeah, I remember seeing that in the theater, and I'm like, wait, what? What's happening? What? That's Hellbound.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
You can hear it.
Oh, yeah.
It's great.
your brain was catching that. Dun, 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 dun. It's like, oh my God, it's Dr. Octopus, and it's like the Hellraiser music. It's great. So
it really cast this like Dr. Chenard light on him.
Exactly. Yeah. It was so awesome.
So who's got that torture pillar from the set? Do you have it?
Yes, I do. I do have it. Yuki, myself, and another man, Wally. Dude, getting that thing to spin, like putting the stuff together that was tricky. That was really tricky. Because, it's not like we can go online and, figure out how, they built the Pillar of Souls originally, so we got to figure it out ourselves. And the director, Austin Jennings, wanted a redneck Pillar of Souls. And so we put like a bag of pork rinds, and we weren't very PC with the redneck aspect, but rednecks make fun of rednecks, so it's all good. And a lot of it was Austin and Joe Bob's idea, and putting chains on all the chains that you see. Well, a big handful of the chains that you see on set were the ones that we personally used for our Hellbound Laments or for the Torturer. And we put all sorts of, we tore stuff up like crazy and just hammered it on there. It was fun. Doused it in blood. It was good stuff.
So Joe Bob is actually from Dallas, Texas, right?
He is? Oh, I thought he was from, well, I guess so, yeah.
Well, yeah, it's the Metroplex.
He's from the Metroplex.
Yeah, I think he was raised in...
encompasses, right, yeah, the Metroplex encompasses several cities. Right. So it's Grapevine, but Grapevine is... I
believe it's Grapevine, yeah.
Yeah. But Grapevine's like near the airport. It's near the DFW airport.
Yeah, that's Grapevine is where we stayed when we came to
it is.
Texas Frightmare, yeah.
Yes, y'all stayed in Grapevine. So, as you know, like when y'all came into town, when you see Texas Frightmare Weekend and Dallas DFW Airport, you think that it's really close, but really downtown Dallas is like 30 minutes away.
Sure.
And that always surprises people, like how big the Metroplex is.
So did you go to like Joe Bob Briggs shows when you guys were younger, or did you only find them through Monster Vision like some of us? How did that go?
When I was younger?
Yeah.
No, when I was younger, I was never fortunate to get on set. I know he used to do it in front of a television audience.
Like they used to have the drive-in mutant oath, like, they would say, "We are drive-in mutants," that stuff. That sounded like
I was only able to catch it, when my dad wasn't, watching football or had some sports on. I was able to catch it right before. Mainly what I got to see was the summer school specials, but I didn't really get to catch a lot of it at the time.
Yeah. And
I think... to be honest, like I just kind of forgot until he made his major comeback. I'm like, oh, I'm familiar with this guy.
Cool. I remember watching some Monster Vision on TNT, but I also always watched that later, like from recorded tapes and stuff I downloaded off the internet. But because by the time I got TNT, he didn't have Monster Vision on anymore. But yeah, I've watched a lot of like Monster Vision specials, and it's still something that people in forums, they will trade tapes with like old Monster Vision stuff. So there's a Monster Vision episode for Nightbreed. There's Halloween 3, all these like awesome things. I think some of them you can actually find them on YouTube, and he just looks so young in those. But yeah, that was awesome.
There's a few Vinegar Syndrome DVDs or Blu-rays that you can buy, and one of the special features will sometimes be the Joe Bob Briggs episode of the movie. So you can watch the movie, and it will stop and do the Joe Bob segment as they did it originally.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Our copy of Ice Cream Man has that.
Oh, that's so good. That's such a good movie. Ice Cream Man.
Yeah.
That's crazy. I still remember him because he also wrote books, and he covered, wrote articles about Hellraiser. I think for Hellraiser, he said something like 78 gallons of blood, 147 gallons of slime, 2 breasts, 10 dead bodies, chains, barbed wire, character actor taffy pull, flaying, clawing, manacling, gratuitous body parts, gratuitous maggots, devil sex, blood gurgling, skeleton chasing, head bashing, rat impaling, rat skinning, face nailing, claw hammer foo. So 4 stars. Check it out.
It's funny when you watch the live tweets. I think on his last live tweet with Hellbound, because Joe Bob's like 2 breasts, and then everyone starts going, "No, I see a boob there. There's a boob over there."
Oh yeah, I think the consensus was 3.5 boobs because it had to do with how blurry the boobs were. The live tweeting is one of my favorite parts of the show. Getting to chat with other people and see what everyone has to say.
Yeah.
And for this particular one, it was pretty cool because I was like, "Oh, all this information that I know," and I was just throwing everything that I had at the live tweets, which was pretty fun. Because a lot of people don't know how, and I liked that Doug and Ashley, especially Doug, was talking about, the Faustian aspects of the tale and everything, and thought that was very important because so many people when you see the movie and they think of it just at like face value and they just think, oh, Pinhead, but they're not thinking about the whole story and all the implications and how the tale itself is this very, very large, grandiose.
Yeah.
Beautiful. It's got like this beautiful history and people don't really think about it. So I'm glad that Doug did mention it. And a lot of people were able to talk about it on Twitter, which is pretty cool. It got people interested in wanting to know more about the graph, like we talked about the Boom series and stuff like that people were going, "Oh man, I didn't know that." People didn't know about the Hellbound Heart. And so I think that maybe people are going to go out and try to start doing their own research, which is pretty awesome.
And it's great that people get to go on Twitter and they send the messages, and Darcy is the one that's like checking it out and bringing it into the show and replying back to people. And so I think people gave Darcy a little bit of they give her some shit some time ago because of her looks and stuff, but I guess they don't realize. Yeah, they don't realize how mean they can be to people, and
the point is that Darcy is a beautiful human being. She's incredibly sweet. She's very knowledgeable when it comes to the horror world, and she's very successful. And she's full of nothing but love for the horror community. And she doesn't have to sit there and retweet or comment to people. She doesn't have to go out and hunt down people who
didn't finish their movie
and invest her own money to get it streamed on Shudder, and she doesn't have to
she comes up with all of her cosplays herself. Like every time she wears a cosplay on set, that's something that she came up with on her own, and she went out and put that together, which is hours and hours of her time because it's a labor of love for her.
She puts together, she does that cosplay, and then she goes out and she finds cool novelty items or people who are horror creators, and she promotes them on the show on Shudder, like the people who make the horror movie puzzles posters that do like Maniac and stuff like that.
I still want that.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing, and then she goes out and she determines who's going to get the Silver Bolo Award, which is people who dedicate their life to horror. So anyone who really dogs on her, I don't understand where they're coming from, because she is nothing but a labor of love for the horror community, and she's very knowledgeable. And like I said, she is like no bullshit. She truly is like one of the kindest people you will ever meet.
I agree, man. I think the people who are being mean to her, they just need to take a chill pill and get off the internet, because she wrote an article about how this affected her, and how she when she was growing up, she had body image issues, and her mother was really mean to her, and she would like criticize her her teeth and all that stuff. She would can you imagine like one of your parents like blacking out your smile with a marker in pictures so they don't have to look at your teeth? That's a terrible thing to do to a kid.
It's pretty common for girls. Honestly, it's very, very common, because like being a woman, your parents are probably, your mom is probably more concerned about you getting a husband. It's the focus is going to be on, oh, you need to be as pretty as possible. My mom started wearing makeup when I was like 10 or 11. Right. And I was required to wear makeup from then on. And you're a kid still when you're like 10 or 11, you know?
Sure.
But it's the societal pressure.
Yeah.
I mean, I definitely understand that, you know, something like that could have happened to her. And it's horrible because you shouldn't be putting that kind of pressure on your children. You know, they're just kids.
Yeah, and like one of the things she mentioned in that article was that, you know, as a cosplayer, at one time she was kind of shamed out of a convention because she was dressed as Wonder Woman, and then someone came over to her and was like, "Oh, you know, your outfit, you can't wear that in here." And she was like, "There were dudes walking around like Vikings with no shirt on," you know, and she ended up getting, you know, shamed and embarrassed out of the convention, but for wearing booty shorts and like a top. I mean, that's crazy. It's
oh God,
ridiculous. Double standard.
Oh, yes. So much double standards at conventions. It's awful. In fact, I'm glad we haven't had to go to a general comic convention because it's really toxic there. The horror conventions are really nice. Everybody at the horror conventions are super chill and like really supportive of each other. But at comic conventions, if I would even just go around, I would hear so many snarky comments about like, "Oh, look, that person, they don't deserve to like this, you know, my fandom as much as these other people." And I don't know, I can't tell if it's because I'm Mexican that I would kind of like hear that kind of snarky talk from people that are specifically geared towards people that were people of color. I'm not really sure if I'm just hearing that more, but you know, like that would be a thing because being a Mexican nerd or being like, you know, a people of color nerd is still something that's still pretty new. But I'm glad that people are finally like able to feel comfortable to come out and say, you know, "Hey, oh yeah, I like this stuff and I like this stuff." But growing up, I was usually accused of like, "Oh no, you only like it because it's popular."
Yeah, I understand that, and there were a lot of people, for example, when Spider-Man, you know, they created Miles Morales and all that stuff. People were like, "Oh, you know, that's not fair. You know, what are they going to do?" And then they turned Thor into like a woman, and people were complaining about that. And it's it's
Captain
just
Marvel too. Oh my God!
Yeah,
so much.
Well, there's talks about Professor X. There's talks about Professor X being a black man now.
You know, it's fine. I mean, as long as they make a good story, that's all that really matters.
Right. It's like you just wait and watch the movie first. Like all those people that complained about Thor and oh gosh, what's his Idris Elba being in it? It's like, oh, you know,
Heimdall.
Heimdall. Vikings can't, or gods can't be black, and all these white supremacist people. And it's like after the movie came out, you didn't hear any of that crap anymore.
No, it's just representation is important. You know, it just opens the doors for people to be able to feel good about seeing someone that looks like them on the screen. You know, I mean, and at the same time, as long as it doesn't really affect the history that much, the story that you're listening, that doesn't matter. It's these characters nowadays they're costumes that actors put on. You know, there's just as long as the actor gives a good performance, who cares? You know, if James Bond is white or if James Bond is black or if, you know, all it matters is that they make a good movie. And
or Doctor Who is a woman. There was a lot of crap about that too.
Oh, there's so much. Yeah, we're still behind on that. Like we haven't even caught up, and she's already hers is already done, and they're going to have a new Doctor. But I'm glad that they're doing it. I personally wish that they had just done it first because I feel like they did the switch with the Master to test the waters. And then they changed the Doctor, and I kind of wish they had just changed the Doctor in the first place. Although I love the Mistress, and I wish that they would bring her back because she deserved her own season because she was awesome.
I'm like 2 or 3 Doctors behind. I'm like, it's been like 6 years or something since I watched that.
It's hard to keep track with it though. Like we're behind about
and a bunch of stuff like it was on Netflix for a while, and then it wasn't.
They pull it.
Yeah, and then that's kind of where I lost it.
And this is a character that's known for changing bodies and changing faces. So I mean,
it's like why I don't know what the blowback was for that.
Yeah, but, it's actually really actually seems really strange that he would be a man 13 times or whatever before he would be a woman. That seems like the odds are pretty low that would happen.
That's a good point. Yeah, but what you said about Miles is very true. Our neighbor, he's what is he? He's 4, right? 4 or 5, Dawson?
Oh, yeah.
Dawson, he's like 4 or 5, and he saw my Spider-Man cup. I was sitting outside the other day, and he saw my Spider-Man cup, and he got really excited, and he came over, and he goes, I love Spider-Man. You know, the new Spider-Man's black? And I was like, yeah, Miles, he's pretty cool. And he's like, yeah, I like him. Yeah. And then, you know, rolled off in his little, you know, his little tricycle or whatever. And that was really, really sweet, because it is important for him to be able to grow up with someone that looks like him.
Yeah, I posted a little cosplayer, a little black kid the other day that was dressed as Spider-Man. It was really awesome. I posted on my Facebook.
So it's really important. I don't really know much about it. I mean, I saw that Spider-Verse animated movie, but so is this like an alternate reality where Peter Parker's not in it anymore, and now he's and it's him instead?
And Enter the Spider-Verse?
Yeah.
No, I mean in Miles Morales in general, like his comic. Or is he live in the same world as Peter Parker, and just the same kind of thing happened to him? Or how does
Earth? There's different Earths. So Miles Morales is a Spider-Man in Earth 1610 or something.
It's all alternate dimensions. Yeah. Thanks to the world of Doctor Strange.
Yeah.
Right. So anyway, you guys have been also putting out every week. You put out some Hellbound Lament little videos that you guys put up. There's one coming out tomorrow, as we're recording this on a Saturday, the 27th. I think you guys have one coming out tomorrow on Sunday. Is that right?
Yes. Tomorrow's the re-release of the very first Innocence configuration, which the band members of Manifestive, Eve, actually, she created her own Cenobite, and it was a little bit inspired by Glass from Sherlock Holmes and the Servants of Hell.
Oh, cool.
A little bit. We couldn't obviously go full blown into the character because we don't really have any money, but we were like, hey, kind of like take this idea and make it your own. Yeah. And they're an industrial band, so she creates all of her own costuming, and she made her own vibraphone. She's a classically trained vibraphone player, so she really, really enjoyed kind of like making it her own thing.
Well, that's cool.
Yeah. I love the industrial goth visual she's got going on with the dreadlocks and the gas mask and the goggles and all that stuff. It's really cool. I've been actually watching some music videos from how do you say the name of the band? Manifestive?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, I was watching Drummer Dust before this, and I was like, oh, this is pretty cool. So they're from Dallas, right?
Yes. Well, Vallejo, California, actually.
Okay. Gotcha.
I mean, I think. They
were developed in Vallejo.
They developed in Vallejo,
right.
But I know Paragraph is from Dallas, so him and I more or less grew up together. And but you should really check out the new video. Just wait, there was an artist out in Thailand that made that video for them. It's like 2D animation, and it's heavy. Like
with the forest fire and stuff.
Yes.
Yeah, I did watch that. That was really cool. Kind of sad.
Yes.
It's great.
It is. It's very haunting. But they do a lot of work of trying to make people be more aware about, like your carbon footprint, and they're very, very like health conscious, earth conscious. So it's really nice to be involved with them, because they give us tips too on how to like compost. And Eve lately, like since we all went to lockdown, I know that she was giving people suggestions on how to start their own gardens. Just to make sure that people would be more sustainable themselves.
They're
wonderful. Very good people.
Yeah, I think I saw Just Wait. It's the one where the deers and stuff, and there's a fire. Yeah. Yeah, I saw that like maybe a week ago or something when you guys posted it. I didn't realize it was from them, but that was really, really cool. I'll put that one in the show notes.
Yeah,
that's a beautiful video
in real time there.
Yeah, but so I mean, I'm sorry, what?
No, I was just going to say, so the Innocence Puzzle, that was developed by Anna Lovat, I think, with Max Lichter, Pyramid Gallery. And I think, and Anna Lovat actually worked on Hellbound, and I think Hellraiser 1. I think she helped out make some boxes with the special effects artists. So she knows her stuff when it comes to Hellraiser boxes.
Yes. We did, we originally, how many Innocence do we have? I believe we have
2 original Innocence.
Before Little Spark Films became what Little Spark Films is now, we shot 5 Hellraiser box videos for the Pyramid Gallery and ConfigurationBoxes.com. And we shot the Torturer, And when we, started shooting in 6K, we did the torture, and then, we took the same team and it beefed up more. And then we made a series called The Hellbound Laments, which our actor Corey Ari, who is also my first AD on set, coined the name for this series. And so it's all in 6K with a very wide aspect ratio. We shot on Cook's anamorphic lenses. And man, I want to say that the production is probably a $2 million production, just with the 8 videos that we shot alone. We shot 8 box videos in one day.
Whoa.
So while getting them ready, and getting them all prepped, edited, recolored, I thought, it'd be a shame to let the original 5 go to waste. And I never really like to go back and, work on old projects. We like to let the past stay in the past.
Sure.
But so I said, fuck it. I went back, and I've been going back through, and we've been re-releasing all the old videos, which means I've been going back. And now that we have a new editing bay that's way more powerful than what we used to have, I'm discovering I can go into the old footage and I can really clean it up. I can make it do stuff I didn't know that I had the power to do. And that was when we were shooting in 1080p on a DSLR.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
Yeah, and so now we're taking those 1080p videos, I'm bumping them up to 6K, I'm able to clean up a lot of stuff, recolor, play with the sound, and I'm making the aspect ratios all match new title cards. So now, instead of 8 Hellbound Laments videos that we are planned on releasing, we're releasing with the original 5 a 13 video season.
Huh.
That's awesome. Yeah.
And like tomorrow will be the re-release of the first Innocence Puzzle with that stars Eve and Paragraph. And I'm actually in the middle of color grading it right now. But man, I'm so happy, that I'm going back and cleaning these up, because I'm rediscovering what my original intent was for some of these videos. Then I hope they do Max and Derek some justice on their artwork.
Right on. Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool.
I've noticed that that the last few videos you guys have put up, like the Midian configuration, I've noticed that the YouTube player is like super wide, and it's like the quality is just so good. And you said 6K, huh?
Yeah. Well, we shot in that aspect ratio. We shot in a 2.38 aspect ratio, which is wider than what any of the Hellraiser. Hold on. Yeah. Any of the Hellraiser movies. It is a wider aspect ratio than any of the Hellraiser movies. It's probably as wide as Midnight Meat Train.
Nice. Wow. Yeah, I'm playing the Midian configuration one right now as we're talking, and I went to the little settings on the YouTube player, and it goes all the way up to 5K. And I wish I had a big monitor so I could enjoy all the detail, but that's nuts. That's crazy that nowadays you can just stream like 6K, video from YouTube. I remember when YouTube got started, it was like 240, progressive.
And the videos capped at 10 minutes. That drove me crazy.
Oh, yeah, I know.
I remember that.
Yeah.
So cool. By the time that this episode is put up, we're probably going to be able to add the link to the Innocence configuration puzzle to the show notes, so people will be able to click and go check that one out.
Yeah. It should be up tomorrow.
Awesome. And
they're all in a playlist too. So if you're following the playlist, every time it re-updates on the Sunday, then you'll have a new video on the Sunday.
And the playlist is the link that we have on the show notes. So that's so go to the show notes for everybody listening, and you'll be able to click and go right to the list that updates.
Yes. And these videos, they're not being released on Little Spark Films YouTube channel. They're being released on, like, if it's a Pyramid Gallery video, Max uploads it. If it's a Configurations Boxes video,
I see.
Derek uploads it. And so they're all just kind of sporadic, between the two guys. And so we're consolidating them on our playlist in the order they're released.
And those guys, they do have sort of competing business, but they're friends and they share tables at conventions and stuff.
Yes.
Oh yeah, they definitely work together, which is nice.
Well, it was Max's idea that we work with Derek as well.
Oh, that's cool.
Just
I
before
don't know, have we told the story of how we met Max?
No, go ahead.
Okay, Joe can tell the story.
We were at Texas Frightmare. We had a friend get us into Texas Frightmare for free. The only stipulation was that we had to document the convention and promote the convention. So what he always did was do interviews around to all the vendors or the celebrities, which we didn't know at the time. We weren't supposed to be bothering celebrities with interviews, but we were doing it anyway. So we did that one year, and the next year we went back, did the same shtick, and we were in the middle of some monotonous vendor interview that was putting me to sleep. And I turned my head and I saw this giant lament configuration, like bigger than a basketball.
Wow.
And it was just spinning, like really slow. And like a moth to the flame, I just walked straight over there, cutting everybody in line off. And I think I interrupted Max and I said, "What is this?" Because he was talking to a customer. And I just said, "What is this?" And he said, It's lament configuration boxes based off the mythology of the Hellraiser universe. I'm like, "I know what this is, but what is this?" And he says, "Oh, this is my company, the Pyramid Gallery." And he gave me a spiel, and I went, "I want this." And he goes, "I want you to want this." And I said, "I want to make videos for you." And he goes, "I want you to make videos for me. Do you want a box?" And I said, "Yes," and I will make a video. And then he gave me a box, and I started making videos.
That's amazing. That's an awesome story. Good old Max playing the Puzzle Guardian role.
Exactly, right? That's just such a Max reaction.
Yeah. He's so nice.
Our
very first fundraiser, he was he donated a puzzle box to me, and I used the little dome for drawing names out of the dome. Right, I had Joey, when he was a toddler, draw a name out of the dome to see who was like the raffle winner, and I was shaking the dome, and it exploded. It broke into like a million pieces, and Max was and I said, and I put on the video as like a joke. I'm like, "Max," like it was his fault. And but he's like, "Oh man, I'm so sorry," and he mailed me a new one. I said, I was just kidding. That was totally my fault. I did that. But yeah, he's so nice.
Oh, that's sweet.
Yeah, he's a great guy. I like talking to him.
Yeah.
He keeps the whole legend of Le Marchand alive in the conventions and stuff. And a lot of people, at the beginning when his website was up, some people were actually like discussing that in forums, like, is this stuff really true? Is this like really based on, because there were all these articles about Le Marchand and about all this research about all these boxes. And people were like, wait, so did Clive Barker actually get this from a real thing? And it's like, and he just loves to feed that stuff,
Oh, yeah. I mean, he plays it so totally real. Like, even the name Max Lichter is a character.
Mm-hmm. I love it. I mean, it's like complete dedication to your craft, Yeah. And I like it anytime anyone does that, just goes all in with the mythology. It's pretty cool, because it takes a lot of dedication to even consider it,
Yeah, and he follows the mythology of the first two Hellraiser movies and the comics and books of the damned.
Yeah.
Right, yeah. That's why he sent us this Book of the Damned 3. I'm pretty excited to read it.
What?
No, I was just going to say, so these Hellbound Laments, I got to say, the one of the last ones you guys posted was the Le Marchand box discovered on Antiques Across America show. And that's actually one of my favorites from these more recent ones that you guys have been putting out, because it's just played so straight. And it's just awesome, because I'm a big Antiques Roadshow fan. And then, you got, I think his name is Bart de Bois Blanc or whatever. And he's just, he's just holding that box. And that awesome guy, the other guy who's like talking about it, just does such a good job. Richard. Richard. Okay. He just does such a great job, and they're talking about the box and what it is. And then it just starts playing the little music, and then everything goes blue. And that's like, that's just priceless. Such a good video.
Thank you. That was actually our very, very first video, and we had no idea what to do. And Bart said, hey, I know this really cool antique shop called Curiosities in Dallas, and I'll ask them if we can use their location. And we were like, okay, cool. And then sure enough, he says, well, they said yes. And we're like, okay, cool. And we still didn't have any idea. And so I was like, hey, okay, well, we got, what do we have? We have a location and we have a box. What can we do with that? And that's usually how most of the ideas start, is that we just kind of go with, okay, well, what do we have at our disposal? And then from there, just build a story and build an idea around that.
And that was a total Robert Rodriguez style of filmmaking, right?
Well, that was also the very first time we had worked with Richard Houghton, who at the time was the president of the Screenwriters Guild of America for the Dallas chapter. Mm-hmm. And he also pops up a lot of places here in town because he's an active comedian. He runs a show on air media called Far Out Fiesta, which is a sketch comedy show, but in the vein of the old 1950s sketch comedies, radio shows.
Radio shows, yeah, the radio show.
And he also, so this was the first time we worked with him. We never met him. I was kind of intimidated, and he ended up being the nicest, sweetest guy. And he was really easy to work with. And I think, I'm going to be real. He was probably the first real actor I think we worked with ever as Little Spark Films at the time.
He also has a role in The Torturer.
He also has a role in The Torturer.
Oh, that's cool.
But I think he was really impressed with how quickly our turnaround was with Antiques Across America, because shortly after he was like, hey, do you guys want to help me finish up my web series? And he hired us to edit his 9-episode web series called Yoga Garage, which that's a whole thing amongst itself. But anyway, yeah, we ended up working with Richard another time for the Hellbound Laments. Catalina directed a video called Love's Easy Tears, which was the second Hellbound Lament video that we released. So you can kind of put them in order.
Yeah, actually, I wrote the Love's Easy Tears. It comes immediately after Antiques Across America in the timeline, because he is actually your puzzle guardian. So
that's right. Yeah,
he accepts the box in Antiques Across America, and then time has passed now, and now in Love's Easy Tears, he has a new box that he's handing off to the actor Rob, and he's saying, whatever his line is, but he's giving off a new box, and he's dressed as the Vagrant.
Yeah, and is that the same character that we see in Love's Easy Tears with Denny Bliss? He's also the same one that's in that other video where he's talking to the other model.
Yes.
I think. In Bad Date.
Yes, in Bad Date. We've decided he's just the same character, and this guy just goes around. Maybe that's his kink. I don't know. We're not going to kink shame him, but maybe that's his thing. He just goes around giving boxes to beautiful women.
Yeah.
So you got it. So these are kind of released out of order this season. But yeah, it goes Antiques Across America, then Love's Easy Tears, then Cage of Desire, and then in a couple weeks we're going to re-release Bad Date, because tomorrow we're releasing the Innocence Puzzle with Eve and Paragraph, and then after that, the one I've been truly waiting for is the Bushido Box video.
Ooh, okay.
And no one's seen that yet, right?
Correct, and that is the one. If you've watched the trailer and you see the samurai fighting the broadswordsman, it's that video.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, I got a big cool vibe out of that one. I'm looking forward to that. And hey, even if the episodes are out of order, you just call it a puzzle, right? When people put everything in order, there's going to be a Cenobite showing up right behind your chair.
That's right.
Exactly. There you go. I like that. Shit, let's write that down. We're stealing it.
Yeah. You heard it here first. So that's really cool. So by the time this comes up, go check the playlist that's going to be in the show notes, and you're going to be able to see the Innocence Puzzle, which is a beautiful box. I remember when it came out, there were these YouTube videos that were made for it, pretending to be like this research from a Rockefeller Institute or whatever. And there was, I don't know if those things are still up, but if they were in Pyramid Galleries.
They're still up.
Okay, cool. Cool.
Yeah, I think he just adds articles and such whenever he finds them to the actual website. And the thing about it is the website's been very helpful for us developing the Hellbound Laments. Like the Love's Easy Tears specifically, he had another little story, like someone had written a story about the box. And so I used that story as an inspiration for the Love's Easy Tears, and then I used an actual line from it. Because it's like, why try to come up with something new if the information's already there? You should just try to take the information that's already been given to you, and incorporate it into the visual story that you're creating.
Yeah. So, being independent filmmakers right now in Texas, which is a state that's actually going back into closing a bunch of stuff because of COVID-19, and bars are closing down again. And I know you guys have worked as in the bartending industry too, right? I mean,
yeah.
How is that affecting you guys in terms of productions, in terms of staying active and all that stuff? How do you guys keep it together during this time, and how's that affecting your production?
Well, well, first of all, the Hellbound Laments, the 8 new videos, we filmed those in December. We did that the first weekend of December. It was the Saturday. And so we all, took a break, and on the one day we just went ahead and did them all at the same time. Yeah. The other thing, the last thing that we've actually filmed was I filmed my fake trailer for Texas Frightmare Weekend for the past, I think this is the 3rd year they're going to be doing their fake trailer showcase.
Yeah.
Which are Grindhouse trailers, like the movie Grindhouse. And they show like 30 trailers. So that was the last thing we actually filmed. And that was literally March the 6th or 7th. I can't remember what the Sunday was. I think it was the 7th. It was, I want to say it was March the 7th. And then March the 14th was when we all went into official lockdown for the state of Texas. And it was only supposed to last 2 weeks. There's been people that have been going out and living their lives. We live with an immunocompromised person, and we have a small child in the house. Yeah. So we are taking very serious precautions still.
Yeah.
But that was the last thing that was filmed, was a fake trailer, which, I did release it. I actually made 2 projects out of it. I made what was called I made a PSA and a fake trailer, and they're 2 separate things. But we're the kind of people that we're going to find something to do, and we're going to find a way to keep ourselves occupied. Otherwise, we'll go insane.
Well, thankfully, right when, lockdown started happening, right before lockdown started happening is when I determined that I was going to turn the 8 Hellbound Laments into a 13 video season. Yeah. So, that's keeping me occupied for 13 weeks.
Yeah.
But
it's keeping us entertained. Yeah.
I wish they were longer, but the longest one we have is right now 3 minutes and 14 seconds. And they're micro shorts, proof of concepts. And I'm glad that we're getting a positive reaction out of them. They were fun to shoot. They're fun to make. They're fun to re-edit and play with. I'm in pre-production right now for a music video, it's going to be shot here in Fort Worth, and my location is a bar. It's an outdoor venue bar. So the location's very excited to have us on site to work with them, because I think we're going to be the highest quality. I hate saying that. Because what we're shooting with, we shoot on a Red Warrior Dragon, and I think we're also going to be shooting on a Red Helium, which is an 8K.
Oh wow!
So putting that together is pretty fun, and it's just I don't think the lockdown's going to get in my way for that video. Pre-production, and we're also in pre-production for 2 feature films right now. Yeah. One's called it's a working title called Wages of Sin, about a junkie real estate agent who is at war with himself, some tube socks, and a pizza that wasn't his correct order. And then there's a rock and roll film that we're in the middle of, where Catalina and I are doing pre-production on right now. And there's other stuff we're writing. And right now, one of my teammates is down in Tyler, Texas, wrapping up production on his feature mockumentary, rock and roll mockumentary called The Man Who Left Nothing, the story of Davy Rocket.
Okay.
Which is kind of like postmodern punk, Joy Division style of music. And it's something that we helped produce a little bit. So there's like 3 Little Spark films that we're slowly working on. Evil for Dinner, for instance, we have no idea what the status is on that because we're not taking charge of post-production, but we did.
That is not a Little Spark film.
We did shoot that movie.
Okay.
But we're not taking charge of the post-production. We're letting those guys handle that down in Austin.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
But so we're, like I said, we're pretty occupied and, helping out with the Corpse Paint show where we can, helping out with Mindframe Productions where we can. So like Catalina said, we find ways to stay occupied. As far as shooting is concerned, we'll see what happens.
Sure.
Yeah, we have to wait until it's safe again. For the Wages of Sin, though, we're going to be doing a very, very small Indiegogo shoot for that project. Other than that, though, yeah, we're just keeping an eye on everything because honestly, I don't think we personally are planning on doing any shoots until at least January, February, because it's just not safe right now. Like if you go out in Texas, there's people that are acting like everything is completely fine. We drove by a snow cone stand yesterday or the day before. We drove by a snow cone stand like 2 days ago and it was full, completely packed.
Oh,
and
sure.
There was just a bunch of kids playing with each other and nobody was wearing masks.
It's very scary. It's very scary. And it's, like I said, yesterday, Friday, the 26th, I was reading how Texas and Florida and all these states are going back to, walking back some of the reopenings that they did because the infections are spiking up and it drives people crazy, especially people who have to, work in projects and go to work. I'm working from home. Ryan, you end up working, you have to drive a lot, but you can also stay in your car while you're doing your job so that you don't have to interact with people. But for people like you guys,
8 hours a day.
Yeah, but for people like you guys who need to get people together, start a production, do this, do that, you have other incomes that depend on certain businesses being open, and it's terrible for a lot of people out there because you don't have your income, you can't do your job, and it's just terrible. So people really need to get their stuff together, and we need to nail this stupid infection, But if I can go back to the Texas Fragment Weekend fake trailer that you worked on, that was really something else. I particularly liked Tori as the demon in that fake trailer.
Demon Metal Murder 5.
Yeah.
So I really hope that people start asking where the other 4 are because there is no 4. This just is.
When you guys were talking about a mockumentary about a band, I was thinking you guys were working on this, but
no, it's a completely different thing.
Yeah. Because the one of the best mockumentaries about a rock band is definitely Spinal Tap. That's the one. That's the gold standard for mockumentaries out there. But I love when people do stuff like that, where it's like it's a fake trailer or a mockumentary about something, and it's like you watch it and you're like, is this real? Is this a real band? And then something happens and you're like, no, this can't be a real thing. But this thing was pretty crazy. So, and I guess we don't know what's going to happen Texas Fragment Weekend, right? Lloyd Cryer has his own group and there's been talks of maybe doing some sort of virtual stuff, maybe do some videos online or whatever. But I guess we don't have any certainties about that, right?
They have, I think on every Saturday, they've been doing TFW Live Central, something or another, where they're interviewing various guests. And it's not even necessarily the guests that were going to be there this year. As of right now, it's still supposed to be the second week of September. Literally, no matter what, I have to go on Saturday because I am part of a panel for female filmmakers.
Awesome.
So doesn't matter if I want to go or not. I have to, fulfill that. And plus I'm excited because that's my first time being offered anything like that. We already have our masks and everything like that. And I mean, I probably won't be able to like dress like as cutesy as I like to dress. I'll probably have to be more like dressed down, but that's totally fine because I'd rather be mindful of other people and be safe. I think it always weirds people out that we're like, we're very much so do no harm people. And they're like, but you like horror. You like to, about people dying. And it's like, I like that. I like that on film.
It's fake.
And I like, and I like having fun and pretending, but I don't like want to physically or emotionally or mentally cause harm to people. I don't like that.
Right, just Paul T. Taylor.
Yeah. Oh, no. He signed up for it. He likes it. It's okay.
Yeah.
It was all consensual.
Well, I got to tell you guys, I was speaking this morning. I was talking to a special effects artist who's been with us in the show a few times, Ed Martinez. He also was one of the guys who was the main editor of Cenobium, which was this awesome fanzine that went on for years and years about the Hellraiser community. And I've been telling him about the stuff you guys have been doing with Hellraiser, Hellbound Laments and all that stuff, and he's really interested. And he actually says he would love to get in touch with you guys. He unfortunately he's lost his sight a few years ago due to illness, but he's still very much active in special effects and he knows a lot of stuff. And he says he's more than willing to consult with you guys if you ever need any tips or anything like that. But I'm sending him the links to the Hellbound Lament playlist so he can listen to that and have his wife tell him what's going on the screen. But he's very, very interested in that stuff. So, and also I told him that, Catalina, you've done burlesque in the past and you've sung in shows and you've sung that really funny song, All My Men Keep Getting Killed by Kandarian Demons from the Evil Dead musical, right?
Yes.
Yeah, and he was telling me, oh, no kidding. He actually worked on the productions for the Evil Dead musical in San Francisco, and he actually did a lot of the makeup for those. And also for...
Oh, man, that must have been fun.
Yeah, and also for something I didn't know that existed. There was a musical of Texas Chainsaw Massacre. What? So, yeah, apparently so, in San Francisco. I need to get more information about that, and if I can find more, I'll send it to you guys.
Yeah, I wasn't able to do any of the Carrie ones because all the Carrie ones were ensemble pieces.
Yeah.
I was like, whoa.
So we're definitely doing our part in sharing all this wonderful stuff you guys have been putting out, and it seems like it's keeping all this like Hellraiser spirit alive, and all this Hellbound stuff now with Joe Bob Briggs and all that. So it's been a really good year for Hellraiser and Clive Barker fans, and you guys are big Clive Barker fans. You're reading like a book right now, and we were talking a little bit before we started. You're reading Cold Hard Canyon, right?
Yes, and the fact that it's set in Hollywood and is about movie making, I am so happy. Granted, it's making me a little bit scared and or nervous because he obviously, he is not hiding his disdain for the Hollywood machine.
Yeah.
Which is totally reasonable, because he has had such a hard time with producers just wanting to dumb down his material, and that's just something that's a common problem, particularly in America. Like producers think that American audiences aren't intelligent, or they don't read, or I don't really know what the problem is. But I know that's been a constant source of struggle for him. And we collect all the movies, even if it's like a produced by or presented by. We still have them on our shelf in order. And it's really, really crazy that, I think the last time he had his actual, name on something was Book of Blood.
I think so, yeah. Probably.
It still hasn't been the order.
It's been a few years since then.
On the shelf.
But it's easy to understand why he's suing to get the Hellraiser rights back right now.
I'm so glad.
Yeah.
Because it's just like I have a friend who, she's not really versed in Clive Barker stuff, and she was watching Book of Blood the other day, and she was writing her, and she's like 26, 27, so the way she sees things is very, very different still, and she sees it more from like a political correct aspect, and I like seeing her opinion on it because it's very interesting to me. And I think it's important to keep that in mind because the way younger people are seeing things, that's something that you need to keep in mind because they're the new audience,
Sure, yeah.
And it was funny seeing her reaction to Book of Blood, and I was like, "Why would you do that? No, no, no!" And so I explained to her, stick to the literally directed by Clive, the good, and other than that, it gets kind of like choppy because the storytelling, I don't feel like people don't take as much care with the storytelling because the way Clive writes is very, and Joe's pointed out, is that it's a lot of emotion behind it.
Sure, yeah.
And it's really hard to film emotion. Mm-hmm. Now, during my read of Cold Hard Canyon, I'm starting to think that maybe he truly straight up is an empath. I know that that's kind of like a pseudoscience-y term or whatever, but from a hippie standpoint, I'm pretty sure he's an empath. Or some variation of being a highly empathetic individual.
Mm-hmm. I totally get what you're saying,
So when he writes and he's writing all this emotion, when people look at the book and they look at the source material, they completely disregard all the emotion. And then they're just looking at the story and they're like, oh, look, the story was only, this long. That means I need to fill it out or something, even though really, if you look at the words and you go, okay, well, what does this word mean? Like literally, what does this word mean? I think that you can kind of maybe get a better idea as to how you can translate the story into film.
Oh, yeah. I mean, just the perfect example is the movie Rawhead Rex. I mean, you read the story in the Books of Blood and then you see the movie and it's like all the internal monologue, all the internal feeling and sentiment and all that stuff is just not there in the movie because it's just hard to put it on camera because it's just part of how the character feels about certain things. And then it kind of becomes involved with what he's thinking as well. So unless you're going to put like a voice off narrating inside someone's head, it's really hard to have
the characters yell, "You have no idea how I feel."
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But
it's a really hard idea to bridge. I think it would take some very serious gymnastics, I guess, to come up with how you would do that. Because we just finished the torture. We've got about a week or two left on it being completely done.
And just to let you guys know, the reason what's taking so long is that we're waiting on audio. Our audio engineer, Michael Buddha, he's probably our primary investor, our main producer. He gives a lot of himself to us, and he underwent surgery on his shoulder. His whole, I want to say, left arm basically had surgery on it from his shoulder all the way down, and he's been in surgery. I want to say he's been in a sling for 2 months. He's been doped up for 2 months in chronic pain. He hasn't been able to sit down and do any of the mixing and master. He got a lot of the mixing and mastering completed before he went into surgery, but it's not completed though. And that's what we did when we did the May preview screening. But he's finally out of his sling. He's got an assistant, and he's informed us that we should be ready to have this stuff done in about a week, audio-wise, and then we should be going to print.
Well, that's great news, and I'm happy to know that he's recovering well, because that sounds really painful.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. The good thing is that he's a really strong person. He will not let anything get him down, which is great. I love having him around because he definitely will also, if you're feeling bad, he'll be like, "Yo, get it together."
Yeah.
Without the slapping portion or the what is it from Airplane where they grab the lady by the shoulders?
Yes.
Yeah, he's like that kind of person. They're like, he'll grab you by the shoulders, but without the violence.
Without the slapping.
His words. It's great. Particularly with the torture, the story itself was 20 pages. The script itself was 20 pages long, but the movie is 40 minutes long.
And for people that are just tuning in, The Torturer was a story by Paul Kane. Paul Kane is like the premier expert on Hellraiser and an accomplished author in his own right, but he's written books about 2 books about Hellraiser, and so he's been on our show before. He's a pretty well-known well-known author and really well-known in the Hellraiser circle. And so you guys got the rights to do a short story of his.
Yes. He sent us we optioned the script from him, and he sent that to us. And it's been a long time coming. This is the largest project. The Torture is the largest project we've ever done. And that's got its own separate story. But anyway, the point for today is that it was 20 pages long, but the movie, now that it's done, is about 40 minutes long. And a lot of times, if you're reading books about filmmaking, or if you're reading a book about translating a story into film, the general rule of thumb is one minute per page.
Yeah.
But obviously it doesn't actually turn out that way, because we actually feel like we cut stuff out. Like we feel like we're missing a montage sequence. We feel like we're missing 2 or 3 little key elements in there. And it honestly, we could have probably pulled it out to maybe even with the montage almost 50 minutes long.
And, we were talking about Clive Barker and how he writes with emotion and how that's difficult to put on screen. Paul Kane does that as well. And,
I like that writing style, though.
I do, too. And when you take something that is a 20-page script and you try to put the emotion on the screen, for instance, The Torture, that emotion is tension and atmosphere.
Suspense.
Yeah. It's a pretty intense script, yeah.
And, some people ask me, how come the movie's not 20 minutes? And it's, in the story, it's described this specific way, which is supposed to, get your heart pumping.
Sure.
And that's what we're trying to show visually. You don't need dialogue to move a story forward because it's a moving picture. So how do you express the tension in such a small room with specific words that aren't dialogue? And so we have scenes that are like, push-pull sequences on just a door.
Oh, wow.
And, but that is, from the point of view of Andy Brooks, that's indicating how he's feeling. And it's a lot of stuff like that I think needs to be taken into consideration. And that's why the movie's not 20 minutes and why it's 40 minutes.
But a lot of times I think that's the problem that happens with Clive Barker's works themselves when they're getting translated from the short story, like from the Books of Blood short story. When they get translated to the screen, people don't take that specific aspect, like what are you seeing from the character, what's happening to the character, how does the character feel. They're not thinking about that, and then they're not even trying to take those aspects and put them on the screen. And that's why if you have something that doesn't feel right, it's because that aspect didn't get moved over. Like I said, that rule of thumb is 1 minute per page, and that's a rule of thumb that's in like every filmmaking book. It's in Lloyd's filmmaking books. It's in like Joe's screenwriter's Bible. Like that's the general rule of thumb.
Well, one of Lloyd's books, I remember reading a passage where he said that sometimes trauma scripts can be only 50 to 70 pages long, and what fills up the time is the action.
Yeah. Of course, there's a lot of like stuff that happens that it's not even moving the story forward. It just seems like they just decided to put that in just because they were going with the flow. Like, Terror Farmer is one of those. There's all of a sudden the movie stops and there's like a music video sequence in the middle. It's doing nothing for the story. It's just fun to have it in the middle.
But
by the way, did you guys
music video on the page and it takes up literally a line? That one little line takes up 2 minutes of the movie.
Yeah. By the way, did you guys hear what happened to the hedgehog?
What?
Ron Jeremy.
Oh.
Oh yeah, no, I know.
No,
yeah, he just got accused of rape. So we'll see how that goes. It's it's not a fun situation to be in for anybody involved. But it feels like also this whole pandemic has been somehow a period of detoxifying certain fandoms. It's been weird. Like it's been like not just in horror, not just in movie making, not just the movie industry. It's like YouTube and stuff. It's just been all this calling out of injustice and this detoxifying of people who might have been problematic. It's just been going on all over the place. I think it's a good thing that that people have had the time to stop and look at things and see what's going on and say, hey, this isn't cool. Why are we doing things this way? Why do we keep doing or enabling these people? And now that people have had a chance to stop and take a breather, it seems like, there's a lot of stuff going on, especially in the horror fandom as well. Some of it is justified. Some of it might be a little more, knee-jerky, but there's some stuff going on right now that, I don't want to get into too much detail in the podcast, but some people have been called out for being really toxic, and I'm just glad that whoever has been like abusing people in the industry are finally getting called out. I mean, the whole Fangoria thing, if you don't know it, look it up. The whole, company that owned Fangoria and stuff, they were helped.
Yeah, it's the Daily Beast article is probably what you can link into that one, because that one's pretty solid on explaining what exactly went down with that. And in particular, that's difficult because that's literally here in our backyard.
Sure, yeah, in Dallas and Texas.
And, we know some of the people that work on the Fangoria podcast. And what's it?
Mick Garris?
No.
Mick Garris. I'm sorry.
No, Mick Garris and Postmortem Podcast, they distanced themselves from it.
I mean, they had subscribed to that one. It seems like he hasn't had a new episode in a while.
No, he hasn't. He hasn't had a new episode, but he did just release a book. I'd like to get a copy, my hands on a copy. Yeah. It looks pretty cool.
But there's a lot of really sweet people that have been hurt because of this.
Sure.
And I hope that they all get back on their feet sooner than later.
Yeah, because there's a lot of fallout when stuff like this happens, but what matters is that the bad people get their just desserts, but that we don't throw out the baby with the bathwater. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Yeah. People who are not directly involved, just by association. I mean, like you said, there's people who do things because they're really, talented people who have a love for the fandom, and just you can't just prove guilt by association just because they were in the same company or anything like that, because sometimes they have no idea of what's going on and they don't deserve to be canceled, so to speak.
Right.
I want to circle back around to what you guys were talking about with Clive Barker adaptations, because I think and how sometimes they don't translate well to screen, and I think one really interesting one of that is Candyman, because Candyman is very, in some ways, is very different from the short story, right? I mean, it's it takes place in America, and and in Chicago, and the character is more than a myth. There's a little bit of a hint of a slavery era backstory, and but I think it worked for so many reasons. I mean, for the Clive Barker fans, they lifted lines right out of the short story. I mean, the Candyman says, I came for you, and so many of those lines pulled directly right out of the short story. So it worked really well for Clive Barker fans, and as a movie, the Philip Glass score and Tony Todd's amazing performance. I mean, that is like probably the most successful adaptation of a Books of Blood short story there is, right?
Definitely. And I think what helps, though, is that it doesn't change the story. And since I finally have read it now, since Jose and I had a discussion about it however many years ago, that I was wrong, because I was wrong. But I have finally read it now, and I feel that when it changed it just made it better. It just expanded on the universe.
Yeah,
and it also did it in a way that would draw in more people. So since it's twofold, that's what is particularly so helpful, is that, okay, they already knew that they were going to switch it over for American audiences by going ahead and, going head on with something that is an American problem.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And it's a multifaceted American problem, because not only is it about the slavery, it's about the projects period.
Yeah.
That in and of itself was something that was a very wise choice on their part. And from what I've gathered, Clive was okay with that, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah. He's a producer. You know.
Right.
But so this new Candyman movie, Nia DaCosta came out with a new animated trailer, and we talked about this a little bit on our last episode. But what did you guys think of that?
I loved it.
I cried.
I thought that was amazing. It was beautiful, and some people who disregard that sequence that was made, that took I could tell it took a long time to put that together. And I hope it's just not a trailer. I hope it's a sequence in the movie, and I hope it's a stylistic decision that we constantly see pop up through the new Candyman.
I imagine it's going to be. Because shadow puppets. Okay, so this is going to be a weird aside, but since I'm a girl, obviously, I grew up with the American Girl doll series. But my favorite American Girl doll was the Addie doll. So she was the one that specifically escaped from slavery. And they used to have a collection of books that would come along with the books that were activities that you could do that were inspired by the time period.
Yeah.
So like if you had, I don't know, the Samantha doll, she was from the 20s. So you would get a bunch of projects inspired by the 1920s. Okay.
Uh-huh.
So the Addie book itself had shadow puppets, because specifically shadow puppets were something that was important to people during the time of slavery. They, obviously you're living during this horrible, horrible time, but you're trying to, as a parent, keep your head up for your child. So shadow puppets was specifically a way for them to entertain their children.
Uh-huh.
So that the specific fact that they use shadow puppets for this, they dug back into their history, and I am so proud of them for doing that, because it's very much so they're taking a stand and saying, hey guys, because a lot of people don't know the history because they don't care, because it's not their own personal history,
I was a little dense watching that, because I was like 3/4 of the way in when I figured out what it was doing. And I gotta go back up and watch this whole thing again. Now from the perspective of like, no, this isn't a bunch of stories of Candyman. This is a bigger, trailer, sort of expounding on the whole theme of what Candyman
and real
is
cases,
about.
right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
like one of the episodes you were talking to me about the little boy riding the bicycle that gets pointed out, and then they put him in a wheelchair, in an electric chair. And you said, wasn't this like a kid that got sent to the electric chair? And I was like, what? Because I'm not American. And I'm like, that's not possible, is it? And then you guys, actually, I think it was you, Catalina, you posted on Facebook something about this young boy that got accused of killing 2 girls, and then he got cleared out long after he was
after they murdered him.
14-year-old was sent to the electric chair. How does that happen?
And
that
there
is
were photos
infuriating.
of him just sitting in the electric chair with the thing strapped on his head, and he's got tears pouring down his face. It's just it's such a heartbreaking, horrifying image. Can you imagine what would be going through his mind?
Even today, a 14-year-old boy, I don't know about today, but still similar things are happening today, and you can see that some people are getting away with crimes that are worse. And some of the people that get in trouble aren't even committing crimes. They're jogging.
Or walking home, or asleep in their apartment.
Or eating ice cream in front of the TV.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ, yeah.
Well, and that's studies. There's been studies released that show that, because of the anti-Black rhetoric that is constantly shown to everybody, through film, television, media, whatever, insert something here, entertainment here. And part of, why you should never use the term thugs, because that has been shown that it's
totally racially charged, because people, people say that it's not, but they mostly only use it against African American people.
Right. And, shoot, I was going somewhere with that. It's gone.
Oh, sorry.
Oh yeah, I remember what it was. No, I remember what it was. They've done studies that shown that people perceive Black children to be older and more mature than they actually are. So like if you take a 13-year-old kid that's white, you take a 13-year-old kid that's, I don't know, Asian, with a 13-year-old that's Mexican, a 13-year-old that's Black, people harshly judge the 13-year-old.
Yeah.
Like, that was a study that I think came out a year or two ago. Wow. So this is an actual perception that people have, and they don't want to admit that they have it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So that's part of why Black Lives Matter is so important right now.
It's this weird fear that's internalized in people that makes them crazy. I mean, this racism. Yeah.
And it's there's movies out there who are also guilty of perpetuating stereotypes and stuff. And I mean, we could go off on a whole bunch of things like that. Did you guys watch Force of Nature with Mel Gibson? That movie was so crazy. It's supposed to take
a recent movie.
Yeah, it's supposed to take place in Puerto Rico during a hurricane, and it's like Mel Gibson, being like a trigger-happy cop, and just taking the protagonism.
There's another movie like that with Mel Gibson called Dragged Across the Concrete. That is a Cinestate movie, and it humanizes a racist cop.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just weird that, these movies are made for certain audiences, and it's pretty clear that sometimes it's just about this catharsis of, I can't do this or I can't say this in real life, but I'll watch this movie because it's going to give me back the things that I believe in, and it's just going to feed me back my own, preconceived ideas. And that's why, yeah.
I mean,
it's because people don't want to be made uncomfortable, so part of the whole all lives matter and things like that is because they don't want to be uncomfortable. I mean, I think it's over now, but HBO Max had released Watchmen series for a week for free because it starts with the Tulsa massacre in the 1920s. And we went ahead and binged it all in once. And honestly, I was nervous because I read it I read the book when I was 17. So it's something that's been my baby since I was 17, even though it was way later, after everyone else had read it. But I think they did a really good job with it.
Yeah.
I was just going to say, I understand having these racist kind of characters or evil kind of characters in various films, comic books, movies. Books, whatever, video games. You do need those kind of characters
as villains.
Even having movies that star these kind of characters, where this is your center focus.
Yeah.
I do feel that we, as a society, as artists, we do need to show this kind of stuff, and at least hope for the best that we have a positive ending, and some character development.
Yeah.
And, say something in our stories and have, possibly teach a lesson or a point of view and help, people think about themselves and go, fuck, I am a racist,
Yeah.
Or, stuff like that. And I'm really excited for the new Candyman, and I can only imagine what is going to be put in that movie. And
you could talk about how working at a movie theater in Jordan Peele.
Oh God, dude! When Get Out came out, I was working at Studio Movie Grill when Get Out came out, and the theater, we went opening night, last showing of the night. Theater was packed. We all exited the theater, and I was smoking then. I was still smoking. And just me and about 10 other guys went outside, and we all lit up a cigarette, and we just took a deep breath man, that was heavy.
Yeah.
And, going from one theater to the next, bars, stuff like that, and, hearing other people's point of views about how they think Jordan Peele's a racist against white people.
Yeah, God, it's weird. It's like stepping into another dimension because I see that and I think, this is awesome. That was such a powerful movie. But then when you go into the comments, because we're in a ton of Clive Barker groups, right? And you go into the comments for about the new Candyman, and it's like, there's so many people that feel so differently about this than we do.
Because it made people feel uncomfortable.
Yeah.
That's the thing. Yeah. But some people get uncomfortable and they try to understand why they're uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And like you said, we were talking about that moment when people go maybe I am a bit racist. Some people pick that moment up and they think, okay, maybe I should change some things. And other people are like, maybe I am a racist. And then they pause and they go no, I'm not. I'm not going to change anything. No, this movie made me feel uncomfortable. It's their fault.
No, they go into attack mode. they go into attack mode. I saw a comment earlier today about the Twilight Zone. Oh, they were talking about the new season of Twilight Zone, and someone was saying how Jordan Peele is a hack and doesn't know what he's doing, yada yada yada. Well, first off, Jordan Peele is very successful, and you can't say that someone that's as successful as him is a hack, especially when he revitalized the Twilight Zone series.
And we wonder what those people that are saying that, what they have done.
Correct. But they're saying that the show is derivative, it lacks imagination, it doesn't have any of the subtle political tones that the original show did. And I was reading this to Catalina just like earlier today, just going, oh my gosh, this is pissing me off that people like this think that. And she said, the thing is, though, is that Catalina said this, that subtlety doesn't work anymore with some people. And a lot of people, they choose to ignore subtlety in visual media because
it makes them uncomfortable. That too makes you uncomfortable.
So therefore, what do? They attack it.
Yeah.
And some people saw Jordan Peele take the place of Rod Serling, and they think, how dare he? And it's all about that. It's like, oh, I don't like to see that. That's not that shouldn't be him, or he's a hack, or because he criticized something.
Or this quote about him, wanting to have more. Use more black protagonists in his movies. It's like, that's not racism, right? I mean, that's it's like, oh no, we white people are in danger. We're all of a sudden we're going to lose our white protagonists. I don't think so. God,
that's laughable.
Back to the representation matters. Of course it isn't racist, and it's because he is a black man. Has grown up with not seeing very many stories from black people, from black voices. So he's saying, hey, this is something that is obviously, it is important to me. And if I were a child, that's something that I'd want to see. And so he's going out and he's making that change for himself and for his community.
And it's really eye-opening, at least, for me, growing up white, it's like I never thought about this kind of stuff until fairly recently. It's like, yeah, man, I had it pretty easy. I mean, it as far as like, representation and stuff like that. I mean, I had never thought about that. What it would have been like growing up and seeing like, oh, all the good guys are white people.
I had interactions with cops that might have gone differently if I was, a black guy instead of being a Caucasian. It's, I was lucky. There were times when, I've had cops yelling at me for stupid stuff that I did. And it's like, maybe if my color was different, maybe this would have gone south a little more than it did. And they just let you go with a warning. But in other places, maybe I would have had to, spend the night in a cell or something. Definitely. But I'm glad that we're going through this period now where we have this going on with Me Too in terms of like sexual harassment, and now we're going through this in terms of systemic racism, and it just feels like there's these like steps that we're slowly walking up, and some people are not getting away with it anymore, so that's good.
I hope so.
Yeah, I think I know there's a lot of people who want to be reactionary and they want to walk this down and they want to destroy everything that the progress that we've done. And sometimes it goes that way. Like you take one step forward and two steps back, but you can't forget that you took that one step forward, that you've been there, what's up there on that other step. So eventually people are just going to go back up because progress doesn't really roll back. It just keeps going.
And I like to hope that all these vocal people are just a really loud minority, as far as like their horrible opinions and
that's just stupid. I mean, let's not forget that a lot of, the Southwest in America, that used to be Mexico. That used to be a place where Hispanic people lived. And now they're trying to build walls and stuff and say, oh, you can't come in here because my grandfather came here like 70 years ago and this is my land. It's like, come on, dude, you're living on Indian land. All right. It's like, that's the thing that people forget. It's like, just because you have one ancestor or two in this country, it doesn't mean that, it wasn't stolen from someone else. And I know people are going to be like, well, but we developed it. We were the ones who came in here and what did you build? You build a bunch of strip malls and parking lots and and expensive houses and stuff. I mean, I don't know.
And sorry.
No, go ahead.
No, and just like, part of being a fan of Clive Barker is being inclusive.
Yeah. Good point.
Yeah, y'all have already heard my long story about, running into the racist in the Hellbound web. And honestly, I haven't even been really hanging out in that group as much anymore because it's just so big and it's pretty. I've seen a lot of toxic coming out of it.
Yeah. One time I found out that there was a big Hellraiser website that was French. And I got in touch with the guy who ran that website. He turned out to be like a neo-Nazi, and I was like, "This is terrible." I started talking to him, and it was like, "Yeah, And this was around a time where there were some sort of. I don't think the website is up anymore, but it used to be called Hellraiser Le Pacte, which means it's the Pact, which is kind of like the name they gave to Hellraiser in France, is the Pact. And it was this one guy. He had this website, and I think it was helllegacy.com or something. I don't think it exists anymore. But anyway, this guy, he turns out he was like almost like a neo-Nazi, and he started talking to me about his pit bull and how this black guy had stolen my pit bull and how, these guys need to get out of my country and this and that. And I was like, oh my God. And I just walked myself out of that conversation. And I was like, oh boy. Cause some people get into this whole Hellraiser idea of order, fascism. And it's like, no, that's the bad part of the story. That's not you. Do you want to live in the Cenobite hell where people are torturing you and telling you, no, that's not a fascinating thing. You want to be in the side of Kirsty and the other people, but it was interesting to know that sometimes horror movies can attract people who get fascinated to it by their own wrong reasons. And it's scary sometimes.
Yeah, it is weird. I don't really know how to combat that. I mean, I personally think it has to do with not understanding the words. Like, I don't know. I'm pretty like in about words all the time lately, and I don't know if that's just like a personal thing or what. But I've noticed a lot that how sometimes you'll speak to someone and you think that you're being very, very forward. And then that other person will like infer all this other stuff that you didn't even say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then they're going to take it and then extrapolate it. And you're like, what are you talking about, dude? I literally didn't say any of those words.
Yeah. That's been happening a lot in political chat and stuff too.
People don't listen. They're just looking to get into an argument. They bring their own preconceived ideas into the argument. So they think they know everything about
straw man stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. But hey, the good thing is, you can be inclusive, you can like horror, you can be cool, all those things. You don't have, it's possible to do all that stuff because horror doesn't mean that you're a broken person, doesn't mean that you're evil, doesn't mean that you're fascinated with obsessed with death and violence. It's a catharsis, right? It's like a way that you get to experience a little bit of fear, you get to exercise your demons at the end of the day, and then you get to go on with your life and continue being a nice person towards other people. That's what horror is to a lot of people like us.
Definitely. And what did Clive say? I'm sorry, I'm probably going to butcher the quote. Y'all probably know it better than I do about being brutal in your work so that way you can, did I flip it? So you can be normal in your everyday.
It's that's actually it's not a Clive Barker quote. It's
be regular and orderly in your life so that you may be violent and original in your work.
There we go.
Oh, thank you.
That's what Pittman said.
Oh, you said it's from Jihad.
That is a quote from a French writer called Gustave Flaubert. So I just looked it up. I think I brought this up with Ryan a while ago.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was from the Jihad comic. But that's a good point. That's a great quote that you brought up because it goes to what we were talking about. So when you make a movie like The Torturer, it's not because you're obsessed with violence or you want to glorify violence. It's because you're just trying to come up with something that helps you exercise a little bit of those demons. It scares you in a safe environment that you can feel that adrenaline. You can feel that, like the goosebumps on your arm, like when you see like Paul T. Taylor being tortured, and you're like, oh my God, what's going on here? And then at the end of the day, the movie's over, and you're like, oh, that was fun. That was a fun ride. That was like getting on a roller coaster. And it doesn't mean that now I'm going to go out and torture someone.
Correct.
Yeah, and also, I mean, the torture itself is the story itself is very, very powerful because it's speaking on mental health. And obviously, mental health is a problem everywhere. Yeah. That's a pervasive issue everywhere. And this guy, he experienced a very serious trauma, and he couldn't get, he couldn't figure it out in his head, and he couldn't find the blame. He couldn't take the blame and put it anywhere else. Yeah. I don't know. Maybe it's a good discussion on blame.
Yeah. Let's not spoil the movie too much, though. Yeah. Let's not spoil it.
Yeah. So that's stuff that needs to be. That's a discussion that needs to be had, though, because it's not just a straight horror movie. I think people have been like, "Oh, it's torture. It's just straight torture porn," and we're like, "No, it actually isn't. There's a message."
Whereas like Saw is, torture porn. You don't really start getting to the story till later in the franchise. But no, there is a message in The Torturer. And as much as we wanted it to be torture porn, and as much as the makeup effects artist, Matt Ash, and I were planning on it to have those kind of elements, we discovered as pre-production and then production moved forward that I was even blindsided by it, about how deep the story can go. So yeah. I really hope people find a message in it and see that, or they understand that, we need to take care of one another.
Yeah.
So, or we didn't do our job.
So when it's finally fully completed, what are your plans for releasing it? Where are people going to be able to see it? Are they going to be able to order it? What are your plans for that?
Well, we will be getting it printed up we will be getting DVDs printed up. It will
include all the Hellbound Laments, right?
It will, if not all the Hellbound Laments, it will include some of the Hellbound Laments as special features. Manifestive music video. Paragraph Taylor did do the score for the movie, which you can find on Bandcamp. The entire soundtrack of The Torturer, which is freaking amazing. And you can get that off of Bandcamp digitally. And I think the whole thing costs like $9 or $10.
And it goes directly to Taylor and Eve, who are currently not working because they're not able to obviously do live shows right now.
Correct. And then we will be selling the DVD online.
Okay.
Through our website.
And the Indiegogo backers that I don't remember if it was the $5 pledge or the $10 pledge. I think it was the $10 and above. They do get the digital.
It was $5.
It was $5. Okay, they do get the digital copy.
They will get the digital copy of the film, of the completed product. We will be doing a film festival run, which we've already started hunting down film festivals. And then I guess during the film festival run, are we allowed to do distribution for like online streaming, or are we not? I'm not sure what the rules are on that.
I have to look up the rules.
Sure. I'm sure we'll be able to update people as that stuff comes out. I just want to drop it's going to be in the show notes, but I'm going to say it here too for people who can't look at the show notes or listening to this in a different place. It's torturerscore.bandcamp.com. So that's the Paragraph Taylor page for the Torturers score.
Yeah.
And and you can buy it for $10, from Bandcamp. I bought tons of music from Bandcamp, and you can get it in like lossless format, MP3, whatever your preference is. But it's a great way of supporting all the artists involved in this.
Bandcamp's great and the money will go directly to the artist.
I love the score. I really do. I mean, if you just listen to the score while spacing out, I mean, you get lost. It's hypnotic. And I remember him and we had 2 or 3 meetings on how the score was supposed to sound for the movie, and it blew me away. And as soon as I finally heard it in its entirety, completely mixed and mastered, I was just like, I want this on vinyl.
Yeah, that'd be something. Yeah, I don't know if there's any plans for that from Paragraph Taylor, but
well, if we get it printed up, it's going to be through Mindframe Productions. But right now, we just got to move forward because from project to project, and then Eve did the canvas art, which kept us afloat all through pre-production and principal photography and post. And now we have a new key art coming, which the canvas art, which is the artwork that you see Paragraph Taylor.
the hands pulling down the Andy character.
Right.
And that is the soundtrack cover because it is still beautiful and we don't want to let it go ever. It's got its own what's the word I'm looking for, personality to it. But we have a new key art on the way from Anthony Galatis.
Oh, really cool.
Right.
Yeah,
oh, yeah, I'm familiar with his work. That's going to be amazing.
And he's from Greece, and he will be doing the new key art, which will be on the cover for the DVD.
Holy crap!
Wow.
Yeah, his posters are really amazing. It's going to be great. I think I might have seen something that he posted on Facebook. I'm not sure if it was about the torture, but I remember seeing something there. It might have been a little sneak peek, but that's really good news, guys. I'm really excited for this.
Oh, he's great. He came to us. He hit me up online and he said, "Hey, I don't know if you're familiar with my work, but this is who I am." And
And we were like, yeah, we are.
And he's like, "Would you be interested in doing working together on some key art for the film?" And I went, "Yes."
We've shared some of his stuff on our podcast page because he's done some tribute stuff about Clive Barker and Hellraiser. So that's really cool.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I'm excited for more Little Spark Film stuff. You guys got 3 feature films you're working on. You guys got by the time this comes out, there's going to be a new Hellbound Lament video that we're going to be linking people to. And let's keep our fingers crossed that Clive Barker gets his rights back. I would love to see you guys work on something for that.
Yeah.
You know what? Me too. And, the moment I get to, sit at Clive Barker's feet, I'm just going to do the Wayne's World, We're Not Worthy. And I'm just going to keep copies of the torture DVD in my hands, hoping he decides to pluck one away.
I've seen him like 10 times, and that feeling doesn't ever seem to go away. It's really weird.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
My last quick question is, did you get to hang out with Doug Bradley and the set with Shutter and Joe Bob Briggs?
Yes, I did.
How
yes,
cool.
I did. So we're on set. We're doing our shtick, getting things prepped. So we sit down for lunch outside a set, right?
Mm-hmm.
And, 3 of my crew members are sitting there with me at the round table. And we're not paying any attention, and I'm just geeking out to my crew members about Hellraiser. And we're talking to them about how we sat with you guys and did the interview at Frightmare with Barbie Wilde and Nicholas Finn, Sam Bamford. And then here comes Doug. He comes and sits straight at our table, and he interrupts me. He goes, "What do you know about Barbie and Nico?" And he sits down. It's just him and the 3 of us, and the 3 of us just sit straight up, like, "Oh my God, we're in the presence of royalty."
He turned us down for that.
He did, and he sat down, and we had a long conversation with him just about life. He mentioned that he was, doing voice work on an animated feature coming up.
Oh, that's good.
I don't remember what it was called. He expressed to us how he really likes Studio Ghibli films. Mm-hmm. He loves Spirited Away.
Wow.
But does not like anime.
That's
very specific.
He doesn't like the only anime he likes is Studio Ghibli because it's an art form amongst itself that probably shouldn't be considered anime. I don't know.
That's fair.
That's not his quote. I'm not quoting him there, but he does like Studio Ghibli and he loves Spirited Away. We talked a lot about that.
Okay.
And we just, what, dude? We talked about the fucking weather.
Yeah.
I'm not joking, and
well, it was great to catch the redneck torture pillar and all that stuff, and knowing that you guys were there, that was really fun. And I looked at Doug Bradley's IMDb page, so I think the show he might have talked about, the cartoon, might have been something that he has listed here. It says J.J. Villard's Fairy Tales, and he's credited as playing Kenneth in an episode called Boy Punzel. So I'm not sure if that's going to be the cartoon show that he was talking about, but apparently it is a cartoon show called J.J. Villard's Fairy Tales. So it's cool to see that Doug Bradley is still doing voice work for these projects. It's interesting.
I've been thinking about that. I bet animation is going to explode. Right now with this uncertainty of the virus and everything, that animation is something that you can do with the actors can be in a booth and
by themselves.
Yeah, and the animation is done on computers and then it seems like it's collaborative, but it doesn't need to be a bunch of people together in a room.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Cool, guys. I want to thank you guys so much for taking the time today and being with us and talking about your experiences with the Hellbound episode with Joe Bob Briggs and your Hellbound Laments.
We skipped the news that we were supposed to do right at the beginning of the episode.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, we can do that at the end.
It's really, it's really quick. But Books of Blood, the new Clive Barker Hulu movie, has a release date.
It's a movie or a show?
It's a movie. It was originally supposed to be a TV show, and at some point during the pre-production, they just sort of silently changed it to a TV show. Changed it to a movie.
Feature film anthology. So it's going to be a movie that has 3 stories that are going to be mildly connected to each other.
Yeah. Okay. Hell yeah.
Yeah. I will subscribe to Hulu by Halloween so I can get that.
Yeah, it says it's arriving in October, so we can expect it in the fall if everything goes well. And it's going to be part of Halloween celebration at Hulu. So
Halloween.
Yeah. And it's what are the stories? I forgot. I think it's gonna involve the first opening story of the Book of Blood with the guy who says he can talk to the dead, and then
and a part of it was the Book of Blood, but then other parts were new, like not adapted from the Books of Blood.
Okay, that's the question I had. Because the only thing I read didn't say anything specific about what stories or how the stories were going to be presented, besides the fact that it's an anthology.
Yeah.
So what you're thinking is that it'll be the first Book of Blood, and then tying together 3 other stories.
Yeah, so I found out the quick synopsis says that there's going to be Mary, the psychologist who has gained fame as a skeptic that debunks beliefs or theories that are not scientifically based. She's going to lose her 7-year-old son to leukemia, and then she's going to meet Simon, who's the guy from the first story, The Books of Blood, who becomes her lover and convinces her that he can speak for her dead child. So that's going to be a little bit changed there, but that's going to involve a lot of emotional stuff to the story. And then there's going to be a girl who's going to play Jenna. She's a hypersensitive girl who suffers from misophonia, which means that if she listens to high-pitched sounds or high-volume sounds, you kind of freak out a little bit. And then she runs away from her mother and goes out to Los Angeles. And then there's going to be another guy who's going to play Bennett, a professional killer whose latest hit is going to be about a priceless book that's going to allow him to retire. So I'm guessing it's going to be The Book of Blood.
So that would be a postscript on Jerusalem Street.
Yeah. So that's going to be the 3 stories that are going to be, in this feature film anthology. So we'll see how that. Yeah.
So it'd be a wraparound with the Books of Blood and postscript, right? And then a new story in the middle. That's
with Jenna.
That's the way I'm understanding it.
It's a good thing that we don't know a lot about it, because that way it's not going to spoil it very much for us. So I've over the years I've changed my stance from going from a kid who didn't have the internet. You remember the late 80s and 90s. We didn't have the internet. We didn't know what was going on with the movies until they came out. Maybe if you were lucky, you would buy a Fangoria and you would read about an article about what's going on with the movie. Nowadays, with the internet, went through a period where everybody knows exactly what's going on. You have pictures taken on set on the day that they're shooting the movie. You get all... You find out leaks from the script. You know the story of the movie before the movie even comes out. And now as I get older, I figure, you know what? I just want to watch it when it comes out. I don't want to spoil it for myself. So, I'm going back to not being so obsessed about knowing every single detail.
Dude, it sucks because some people, if you don't keep their attention 24/7, you lose steam on promoting your film.
Yeah,
That's
it's
true.
a weird balance because if you saturate people with stuff, they can already be sick of it. But by the time it gets to the theater, but then if they don't do that, like you said, it's like, or is it going to make people forget?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
We'll see.
Yeah, so cool. In the fall, we'll have Book of Blood on Hulu, so that's something to look forward to.
And Candyman, like only a month before that.
September, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, September. Hopefully. And we were just actually at our local drive-in last night to see Jurassic Park. That was pretty cool. But I don't really know how things are going to go if movie theaters still aren't open in September and they decide to just go ahead and release Candyman. I love watching films in the theater because, obviously you don't get distracted by your phone. You can't literally be distracted by anything because the screen is so large and the sound design they have like the actual codec is made specifically for watching on the theater. So I'm kind of nervous about the idea of not being able to see Candyman in theater because I've had my heart set on it.
It demands your undivided attention.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true. I mean, September seemed so far away when they changed the release date, but it doesn't really feel that way, like it's that far away now.
Well, COVID makes time move faster and slower at the same time.
Yeah.
I wonder how many horror movies we're going to have in the future about pandemics.
I hope so.
Oh, God.
We have so many.
Nobody wants to read your COVID script or cue your COVID song.
Yeah. Do we have any more news to get to?
No, that was the only one as far as I know.
Okay, that's cool.
Important announcement.
All right, guys, cool. Thank you so much for joining us one more time, and it's always a great pleasure to have you guys here with us. We love your work, and keep us in the loop. Keep us in the loop, and send us all those links. We'll put them up on the show notes.
Copy that. Thank you, guys. We love you.
Thank you so much.
Right,
we love chatting with y'all.
And this podcast, having no beginning, will have no end. You can find the show notes for this episode and join the discussion over at www.clivebarkercast.com. We've got an archive of past episodes, news, features, and reviews, along with all the ways you can connect with us. You can subscribe on every other place you can find podcasts. Share your thoughts with us, and share our podcast with your friends. The Clive Barker Podcast, or BarkerCast, is an independent editorial podcast and news blog that's not affiliated with or under contract by Clive Barker or Seraphim Inc. This is a labor of love by the fans for the fans.
Thanks for listening.